Happy Friday, everybody. It is the 6th of March, and today I have a very special guest. I've got Aldon Baker, who has arguably won more championships combined than most of the other trainers. He's transformed the way riders go from just, hey, I'm just going to do push-ups to now this complete periodic system with heart rate, diet, everything. So stay tuned.
You are watching Moto Unfiltered.
What is up, Alden?
Hey, Johnny, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. I know we were just talking a little bit of the background here, but now we're live, so I'm reintroducing everyone to you. So for people that don't know, Aldon Baker has trained athletes like Ken Roczen, Ryan Dungey, most notably is Ricky Carmichael. That was kind of the start of everything to really transform stuff. And here, let me get into Coach here as well. We all know the mad scientist, Coach Rob, but pretty much, Alden, the first question that I personally want to know was, you're from South Africa, correct?
Correct, yes.
What brought you over here and decided to hop into motorized two wheels to be like, hey, I think I can train these guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It was kind of a strange situation. Obviously, throughout my life, I've been involved in training. My dad was a top marathon runner, and so I was brought up with training. And then I actually got into road racing in South Africa, of all things. I wanted to do moto, but it didn't work out. I had cousins that raced the road stuff, so got into that. And then, unfortunately, the army at that particular time in South Africa required you to go for 2 years to them, then finished up with that and couldn't afford to get back into the road racing, but got into mountain biking. And that developed, and that brought me to America and then on to Europe for mountain bike racing and some road stuff. And it was actually through that process in America where one of my sponsors, which was Oakley, I met Johnny O'Mara. O'Mara was I wouldn't say trained, but overseeing Carmichael, and he worked for Oakley. Johnny, obviously, we know, was a well-accomplished motorcycle racer himself. I kind of followed him and looked up to him and what he'd done on a motorcycle. And then he kind of put the pieces together because Ricky was in Florida, and he felt that, man, he needs someone out there in Florida to train him. And I was brought on initially just to get his conditioning right. So I was using my cycling and my training background to honestly just change his diet and get him physically fit. Initially, it was nothing to do with the on-riding stuff. But that's where it started and developed from there. And I'd say one of the best ways to learn, and I'm sure Coach Rob can understand, the more you're around these and you're actually in it, you learn so much. So yeah, that was 26 years ago.
Wow. So who reached out to you to train RC? Was it RC or Oakley?
Yes. No. It was RC. I mean, we met because of probably the Oakley connection and my connection with Johnny O'Mara. But I was kind of teasing Ricky back in the day. I'd meet up with him a few times in California. I was based in California with my mountain bike and cycling, and I kind of tease him at, man, you could do so much better if you were in shape. And he was telling me, I mean, he was still on 125s, and he would say to me, yeah, but I'm doing really, really well. And I was like, well, obviously, because you have a really good sponsor and you got Oakley and you're the guy. But I think when he moved up to at that particular time, the premier class was 250s. He started to see that he needed something, with conditioning, and he reached out to me, and we started from there.
Wow. Coach, do you have anything to add about the timeline there with start off with RC?
Excuse me. I don't want to embarrass Alden, but people don't realize the journeyman's journey that he's had. I mean, ended up sleeping in the cabin on the property when he's by himself, and if I'm not mistaken, you came over here as a single man, if I'm not mistaken, Alden.
Yes, Rob, that's true. Yeah.
A lot. And if you've ever been to the goat farm before Star bought it, it is a pretty desolate place. Cairo,
Yes.
Georgia is not the biggest epicenter of nightlife and good food. And
Mm.
there's a lot of cool pictures of that cabin, but Alden
Mm.
actually slept in that thing by himself. I don't know how many years, but he's a bigger man than me because that place was pretty creepy. A lot of history. I mean, we see the water truck and everyone gets enamored by it, but I
Yeah.
just envision this young man from South Africa. Again, if you've never been to Cairo, Georgia, it's as
Oh.
bad as you can imagine. And a single man from South Africa, not really knowing anybody, living in a dilapidated cabin in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, this guy's got quite the journeyman story. I love it. It's good stuff.
No, well, thanks, Rod. I appreciate the kind words, but yeah, nothing, as you know, and Johnny, I'm sure nothing just starts off really easy. You got to dig in and stay with it, and it wasn't easy. Yes, I'd never been to Tallahassee, never knew much about that, and Ricky was pretty good at also going different routes into town every day. It seemed like I could not learn how to go anywhere there, you know. So,
Yep.
but I was committed, and I remember thinking, and with that, hey man, we'll give it 6 months. If Ricky hates me or I hate him, then heck, I'll be gone, you know. And it escalated from there, and it was pretty awesome, man. To see the change in him, and also for me to learn how he operated in the sport and how the sport operated and what was going on at that particular time, um, was a big learning curve for me. And there was a lot of trial and error, things that I was trying to adapt my ideas to the way they worked in their system and with the factory team and all the racing. You know, that was another big thing to me, is I couldn't believe how many races they did, you know. So that was pretty cool.
And it's only gotten more.
Yeah, John.
Yeah.
So was it just like if this is kind of like a Hopper's hypothetical, but hypothetically, if you never met RC, would we not have the Baker's factory, and there wouldn't be the Baker's Foundation of over the last 10 years? Was that just like a one random event that kind of led to what has become basically a training empire?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if that hadn't have worked there, and I was, you know, got to give credit to Ricky. He was all in. He took a chance on me, just like I was taking a chance on him. Um, and if that hadn't have worked, I would have probably gone back to South Africa. And actually, my family were moving to Australia, so I'd probably be, I don't know what, doing something in Australia more than likely. So yeah, it all through that is what developed and evolved to today. So, and I can't believe it's 26 years. I mean, I feel a little old saying that, but yeah, that was where it started.
Yeah, that's
and Johnny, you also have to keep in mind, and I hope I again don't embarrass Alden. You got to remember, Johnny O'Mara had no desire to live in Cairo, Georgia.
Yes.
Right. So if you put all this together, it's like Johnny was the great matchmaker. He's like, okay, Alden, you want to
Yes.
come to the States, and I've got this young man that's kind of good on a dirt bike, and I've got an offer for you.
Yeah.
I'll stay in California in my plush estate out here, and you stay in Cairo, Georgia. We'll talk every day. See what you can do with this little guy that's got kind of a reputation for being a little bit wider than he is tall. So
yeah.
Good luck, Alden.
That's right, Rob. Yeah, Johnny, and even when he did pop into good old Georgia, man, it was not good for him. He never liked it, you know. So
And
that was one of the things where, yeah, and then obviously January we spent a month there at least in California. So then we'd be in Johnny's house, basically Ricky terrorizing him and me trying to just keep the balance right, you know. So it was quite a cool dynamic, how that all developed. Yeah.
And Johnny, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are no direct flights out of Tallahassee.
Yeah.
So when you leave every weekend, when they leave, they've got to fly to Atlanta to get a connecting flight to go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's so clumsy
What
and
about
cumbersome.
private jets?
Well, that's why Hayden's flying private, because you can get an extra day in your bed. But people don't realize that little inconvenience. Imagine every weekend
Yeah.
you know that there's no such thing as a direct flight because you've got to go to Atlanta to go anywhere.
Correct.
This is the kind of life that Alden was living from the very, very beginning. Nothing was simple out there.
No, it wasn't.
Alden, think about the YMCA that's in Cairo, you know. You better be packing when you go through that parking lot because you may not make it to the pool.
Yes.
Johnny, this is not an exaggeration. It's a tough area over there.
Yeah.
Minor sidebar. I was picking up pizza yesterday and it wasn't quite ready yet. So I just parked my truck and this shady individual came up to my side of my truck and he wasn't talking. He was just whispering and he kept pointing to the rear of my truck. And for a second there, I almost got out of the vehicle. And then I'm like, shit, I got my kids and my wife in here. And I was kind of like, what's going on? And he's like, he kept trying to get me to the back of the vehicle. And so I just was like, no, go away. And I drove off. And then, once I got home, I'm like, there's nothing fucking wrong with my vehicle. And I was like, I don't know if he was trying to get me out of the vehicle. So, but it was off,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it was a very dark area for where this little pizza place was. It should probably be like Alden's like, why the fuck are you eating pizza?
Yeah, I was thinking you put yourself in a bad position right out the gate.
Yeah. So Alden, I have to ask you, when you moved to Claremont, did it give you the reminiscence of being out there in Cairo with the rolling hills and the 2-lane roads and no cars compared to what you see now out there on 33? And you know, if you don't get hit by a rock truck on 33 or having a good day, or Boys Ranch Road, we used to go out there and ride. We'd be on the south side of 50. We could ride for 2 hours on Boys Ranch Road. All of that. Might see 3 cars.
Yeah.
We could do seated hill repeats up Sugarloaf and not get passed by a car all day, or do Ferndale Loop. Now, compare that to Cairo. That's what I remember Claremont being initially.
Yes, and you're right, Rob. Back in the day, look, out there in Georgia, there was nothing, and you just had to keep an aware for what I call the dang, roughy truck drive, more like redneck guys, kind of just getting a little close, but far and few between. Then come down to Claremont, and obviously initially I was, because I had an option when the whole Claremont move came with Villopoto. Because he said to me, I'll go wherever you are. And I was like pretty well settled up in Tallahassee. And I started to look at a facility that I could utilize. So I was like, you know what, I think we can do this. But then he was using Langston's place down here in Claremont. And the crazy thing is, I'd always gone like kind of down 27, which sort of just splits Claremont, on my way to Haines City for James when I was working with him. But never liked Haines City area, obviously. So I thought, like, I'm never going to move. And never really knew much about Claremont until I came down to check on Villa and see what he has available and then make a decision. And man, the rolling hills and the lakes. And I was like, I called my wife. I said, listen, we're moving. It is what it is.
Absolutely.
But it has since got a lot more busier. Claremont has kind of blown up. And it is a hot spot. I mean, it's cool because you're close enough to Orlando, you're close enough to the airport. You talk about ease of travel. The flights out of Orlando there's plenty, so that makes it a lot better.
It's the Disney.
Then being close to everything you want. It has it right here. So I'm not surprised it's really, really popular. But you're right, Rob. Now we're even with the cycling. Gravel bikes, I've been a big sort of that because we can go on trails that are not as busy. You mentioned 33. I wouldn't, we don't touch that one.
No, don't
like
touch
you
it.
say, the trucks going down there, it's you, unless on the weekend, maybe not as much, but you got to pick and choose and know your stuff. So you're right. It has become a mecca, and but there's a good reason. And if I just go back to the moto guys, how many moto guys are down here? It is impressive, but it's for good reason. It's for the travel. Sure. I mean, Hayden is using private plane, and I remember when Ricky started doing that out of Tallahassee, and it changed the world. But at that period in time, Reed was doing the same thing. Bubba was doing the same thing. It was the norm until I actually linked up with Villopoto, and then again, we were able. Our flights out of Orlando were easy, and people forget we also have Tampa. That's not that far from us, and has another whole bunch of
flights.
avenues. Yep. So,
are you running the gravel bike around Lake Apopka? Is that where you're running your gravel bike?
Okay. Yeah. So that's turned out to be pretty cool. Yeah.
You got to send some pictures to Johnny, because Johnny loves alligators. It's his favorite pet. It's his favorite reptile.
Yes.
Alden, I don't know if you realize, but Johnny's wife's a vet. So he has, he's like a pet aficionado. He loves alligators. And I said, you know what? Let's go around the Apopka Loop. You'll see 8, 10 footers.
Yeah,
they may or may not hiss at you.
They run, and
when you come up on them, Johnny, they may or may not hiss. They may or may not move.
I told Osborne, because he was like, yeah, dude, you'll have to come down here and cycle with me. We'll see a shit ton of gators. And I'm like, dude, F that. Like, there's no way there's that many. And then he sends me like 3 or 4 photos, and I'm like, why are you riding a bicycle?
But they and you're right, Rob, they're lazy. I mean, I've got them at my facility. There's one in every pond.
Yep.
And one guy I'm kind of proud of, actually, the other day I bought him a old chicken from the grocery store and threw it, because I was like, man, he deserves like some, I don't want to lose him. He's such a big old boy. But they don't move. They are so scared of you. I would honestly swim in that pond, no problems. Now, if it was a crocodile, we have problems. I'd be out with my weapon trying to sort that problem out. But it's crazy, the difference between a gator and a crocodile, in Africa. But I know they're freaky looking, and
okay, what's the difference in South Africa versus in Florida?
Well, South Africa has crocodiles. They will come out of that water and go for you, like, meaning they will attack, not move away. Now, gators, and I mean, I'd say unless you go and mess with them at night near the nest where they've got bait or something, I mean, you've almost got to look, because if you think of how many ponds and water area there is in Florida, and the gators are in every one of them. And I mean, maybe the odd person's little dog got nabbed, but they do not actually attack. I mean, unless I'd say there's some sort of provoke or something going on that's weird. But a dang crocodile, that guy is a different animal.
Yeah. Alden, I've been trying to get Johnny to come down, because I said, let's go over to Lake Mineola. We'll jump over there at Waterfront Park. We'll just go back and forth in the day use area. And I said, there'll be 3 or 4 gators. They just swim parallel to you. And like you say, if it's not mating season, they don't bother you.
Yeah.
Johnny, I just can't get Johnny for it. I thought he was more of a man than that, but just can't get him to go for it. So maybe you can help me talk him into coming down.
I'm telling you, they're cool. Like I said, I wouldn't want to go and maybe stroke its nostril. But the thing is, they're not going to let you do that. Even the ones I have at the track, if they're on the bank getting their daily sun, but if you get too close, they're gone. Almost too timid. I had some Austrian guys out last week, and they all ask about gators, and I said, yeah, they're there. And then as soon as they get close, they're gone. Then you're like, well, you almost got to sneak up from a distance. Yeah, they're
interesting.
They're actually pretty timid.
You guys are talking a bunch about cycling. So Alden, like, why is it that cycling is such an important aspect to motocross and supercross? Like, when I talk to David Bailey and Jeff Emick and Donnie Hansen, these older guys, Jeff's going to text me and be like, what the fuck? But they would normally go run, they said, like, hey, every day I'd run like 5 miles, and that was just kind of it. Is it just because it's hard on the knees, or what is the big advantage cycling has over just running?
I think you can cover more bases with cycling because it is easier on the body. And to me, an athlete is either a decent runner or he's terrible. And, so when I first started and with Ricky, he wasn't a good runner, where if you go back like Johnny O'Mara and David, they all ran, like they were fully into it. I mean, Johnny was a good runner. So I think it does link to who you're actually training. Overall, I feel that the recovery aspect of cycling with the cardio that we need cycling balances out way more than running, because running is a little bit more harder on the body. I do feel it has its place. You can quickly go for a run and not have to suit up. As I always say, it's not worth it on a bicycle if you at least aren't out there on an hour, but a 30-minute run can do you a lot of favors. So therefore, I think time-wise, that's the separator. But overall, most riders, there's either ankles or knee problems or something from past injuries or something, where the cycling is almost a form of rehab and better for them. So that's why I stick to more of that. And also it's 2 wheels. It's kind of cool. I think you see improvements more in cycling as they develop. We're running, I don't necessarily see the improvements with the guys that have run, because remember, their schedules don't allow for a lot of consistency in one aspect. Their riding is what is their main deal. So all the other parts of the training are just to benefit that. If that makes sense.
You guys use programs like Zwift a lot? Because there's with the indoor cycling, or not so much. And
not so much. Sorry, and I don't want to butt in, but not so much because weather. Yeah, they don't have to do too much indoor.
Yeah. I say it there in Florida, rather than anything else. So cycling for these athletes are more of like a zone 1, zone 2 recovery state, where running, it's very easy to get above that. And then if you train like normies, right? I'm just going to say it, normies, a weekend warrior, would running be an alternative to maybe try to recover, because they might have wife and kids and in a job where they can't get out for an hour and a half? I mean, would that be
Yeah, I would say that would work. And as long as the person is, he's not slogging it out and almost doing more damage to him, like more structural guys, I feel that are a bit bigger tend to not be good runners, and it's a little harder on their knees. But I'd say if you don't overdo it on the running, it's still a good workout. And time wise, for sure. I mean, this morning I went for a run because I knew I had to be back. You know what I mean? So a lot of the time with the other stuff that I have to do, I run a lot more than I am cycling. So it does work in when you have to divide your day and make everything count, for sure.
Quick sneak peek into Alden. What was your run workout? Was it just a quick little, I'm just getting out for a 5K? What was it?
I've got a 3-mile loop. It's actually 3.2, and it's perfect because it's got some rolling hills. It's just not long enough where I start to understand that I'm just don't run like I used to, but it's just good enough to keep me, I'd say, cardio wise, because I range in between that zone 2 and a bit up the hills, a little higher, so that when I get back on the bicycle with the younger group that I have, I don't feel like I'm off, where when I didn't used to do that and kind of just wing it a little bit and say, no, I'll be still fine on the bicycle, it would catch up with me. Yeah.
So do you do all the training rides with your riders as well on the bicycle?
Yes. Yeah.
So you go out, do you set the pace and let them know, like, hey, don't pass me, or this is the program we're doing? Or is it more of a, since we're doing a zone 2 ride, we're just out shooting the shit, kind of, girls in the bathroom type of a ride?
I mean, it differs. I mean, I think if they annoy me, then I'll get annoyed, and then I want to make it a little difficult if I can. But no, for the most part, the rides we're doing is to balance out the high heart rates they have on the bike. So it is zone basically 1 and 2. Sometimes with the hills, and Rob will know, you're not going to hold it in those zones, so we go a little out. But for the most part, I try and get them to rotate out, get it more equal. If I see one of my guys is, not doing too well, or he's been struggling, then I'll put him at the back. So it's good for me to, in a way, do my best to orchestrate them the right way, depending on each guy. And then it's cool because it's a bonding thing still. It's still team stuff, but we're still getting the training, that we need, instead of it being where they sort of stuck on their own.
And what does a recovery ride look like for some of the top athletes? Because I know people would love to like, hey, I raced on Sunday and I want to still do something, but I want to do it kind of like the pros. What does one of the recovery rides look like?
Well, I mean, so a recovery ride is it's still a minimum of an hour. We don't do nothing less than an hour if it's on the bicycle. Because you still, when I look at the overall heart rates, um, you're still going to average probably in the zone about 45 minutes, So, and if I see a course that we're dipping low, I want to add something where it's going to bring it back up. So we have multiple choices on routes to go. But the recovery ride the goal is to keep it in that zone 1, 2. I prefer the zone 2 stuff, to be honest, if I can keep it in there with that. So the guys all can see what zones they're in, and their goal is to stay in there. And then if I see if a guy's staying in zone 2, but it's kind of messing everybody else up, I'll move him around to the back. Or so it's pretty. I mean, it's not that difficult for I take care of 4 or 5 guys to get that in relation.
So you're saying there might be some fitter guys that their zone 2, their watt output is higher than some other guys. So they're like, cool it off. And I don't know if many people know that Alden has a bicycle company. It's called Alcave, and this is his gravel bike that he's got here. I've got a couple comments in the chat saying that it's a pretty cool bike. Do you mind sharing how this whole thing started and created? And I mean, because this is a lot of your background.
Yes.
And so is this your first passion was cycling? So now mixing the two?
Yeah. So always that's what brought me to America was cycling. And it's been about 8 years now that I was also helping on the side this really cool BMX rider named Alfredo Campo. And he was from Ecuador. And actually he was good friends with Martin Davalos. So I'd met him and we got on pretty cool, and he was doing BMX, and he's been to the Olympics multiple times, a really good rider. He was a junior world champion, but we built up a relationship, and he had asked me my ideas of training with my knowledge from cycling. And then I would ask him and talk to him about the BMX stuff, because that's all out explosive and how that worked. And we became good friends. And then one day he said to me, "Hey man, would you ever be interested in having your own bicycle?" And I said, "Well, heck, that would be phenomenal, but I have no idea on how to get to that point, and I have a lot on my plate." But he said, "I'm going to do some research and I'm going to get into it." And I thought to myself, well, yeah, good luck at that. I mean, I'm sure companies like, at the time I was very involved with Specialized. I was like, man, I'd hate to know how you even try and get to that point, because there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. But he actually went to Asia and spent a lot of time there, and he's got an amazing talent and ability to link in with people and get good relationships and build like knowledge and understanding, like a real methodically unbelievable guy. And he came back and he said, "Hey man, I've worked out a roadmap." And actually, what the other part of it, his wife is a business degree woman from Harvard, super smart on the business side. And they would come and explain the ideas and the process, and this is what it's going to do and all the rest. And it blew my mind. I was like, well, I think this thing is going to be good. It's one of my dreams, for sure, would be if I could have our own bicycle, partnership and product. And that's how it started. Now, once again, it wasn't easy. I mean, it took 5 years in the development before anything was even launched. And that's where people don't understand the bicycle. There's a reason why they are expensive, and it is to do. There's a lot of design and
when you guys use really good components, what I'm looking at.
yeah, well, you look, you have to be partners with Shimano, SRAM, even Campagnola as they come and go with their development. But there's a lot of partnerships. And then, to me, Taiwan is the leader in doing frames and the carbon coming out of Japan. There's a process to it, and design and engineering, and there's a lot. Because I was always under the impression, man, yeah, I'd love to have a bike that would climb well, but it needs to have speed. How hard could that be to develop? And it's difficult, because as soon as you change one area, it affects multiple areas. So a lot goes into the design and the engineers that we have, over in Asia, and there's a lot of pieces to it. And once again, I go back to, you got to have strong relationships. We are a boutique bicycle per se. We make limited amounts, and that was always our goal. Is we're not out here to take on Trek, Specialized, or those massive companies. We are making an elite bike that is for the person that kind of wants a bike that not everyone can have. That's our goal. So only 50 are made in each product, and as we develop now, we about to launch. We've got 2 gravel bikes now.
What's the difference, Alden, between the Escape and the Vortex?
Just the design factor and the dampening, Johnny, and you can see that on the rear end. So the one, the Vortex has
I think this is the Escape.
and yeah, so the Escape, the design on the rear end there, it actually flexes, and that's your comfort on gravel roads, and to give you the to me the ultimate comfort off road, but still have the speed of, because it's a blend. You're trying to blend a road bike into a more comfortable mountain bike per se. And then the Vortex is got a different dampening system, a couple of extra chambers for storage. So it's a slightly more kind of what we develop for sort of race program. Very similar, got a very similar feel, obviously, just slightly different designs.
And who are these for? Are you for the niche market or the professional athlete, or are we going for the everyday consumer that just wants to have an all-around bike to show his buddies, like, hey, look, you might have that Trek or Cannondale, but look at how cool this thing is.
Well, to me, it's for the everyday consumer, but you also need to design it and have it ready to perform, because if it doesn't perform, well, that's to me not a good product. But our main audience for us is the everyday person that says exactly what you said, is like, hey, look at my cool looking bike and how high end it is, and the unique designs and what it offers. And also, not everybody can just get one of these. It's a lot more, to me, details, as you can see on the frames and the design, than most. And we don't just pump out thousands and thousands of those bikes. And the goal there is you become part of the Alcave family when you do have one of these bicycles, because they can connect with me, they can connect with Alfredo. If there's any warranty issues, bike comes straight back. You get a new one sent to you. So we're offering a more of a, like, you have a team behind you, and with us, and the way I'm linked to teams, I wanted it to be that way, that you have the right support, and you have the best of the best. So so that's the goal, and that's what we are developing and keep on pushing. But I got to say, I've got amazing partner with Alfie and Anna. They are on it. They have a great team in Ecuador that does a lot of our the video stuff and everything, and they are really into it. It's impressive when they come out to film and to do stuff, the web stuff. They are like so into it. It's an amazing thing to see.
Okay. Last question, Alden. If you were just using this for your zone 2 recovery rides or so, what would you recommend somebody that was interested in buying your bike? Would you say gravel, because you could do everything? You could do road, you could do gravel, or would you say, hey, I'd probably just go with the road? What would be your pick for an everyday consumer?
Well, it depends where you're living. I always say, like what I was talking with Coach Rob earlier, is that we're starting to see our roads are getting a lot more busier. And when the times when we want to utilize the bike, they are pretty busy. So we're preferring the gravel bikes because it's giving us more options at that particular time. I'd say gravel bikes are going to be, it's a blend once again between a road bike and a mountain bike. It gives you more options. But then you still, if you're a kind of still a speed freak that wants, like, man, I want my bike to be really fast, I want that thing to rip down the road, then our road bikes, and we're about to launch in a couple of months our new road bike, they are the way to go because they are, yes, they are faster. They are really quick, obviously up the climb. It's a fast road bike, So I think it comes to preference on where you are and what you're looking for in a bicycle.
Little teaser on your new road bike. What's the difference between the current one?
The design is a lot more stealth, with the wind shape. It's called the trifecta. There's been a few that have popped out there. We're putting out a few NASCAR guys who got them, a few of the pro riders. So we're popping it out there and also just to get some content and feedback. But it looks stealth. That's all I can say. It is an impressive looking machine. And I think we've been testing it, and it is built for speed. And this particular bike also has the option that you can change the bars to go straight into triathlon mode. So it also has 2 phases to it because, and Coach Rob will also know, there's a lot of triathletes in our area down here, Florida. And that was one of the demands was, hey, listen, man, I want a good road bike. I can train during the week, but I can also adapt it if I want to go and do a triathlon. And we gave that a lot of thought with the design and especially the bars. So we're excited. It is pretty cool, and it's a good looking machine.
Any release date on that?
I'd say we're about a month out. Yeah, but there'll be a lot more we'll put out on social media as things develop. All the latest stock of them have just recently arrived, so they're getting built, and they'll be popping out soon. So that'll be huge. We're excited, and the plan is to get my guys on it too, to get a little bit of what they think of it, and because they're good test pilots because they're so different. They're not, I wouldn't say true cyclists, but they'll know if the bike's uncomfortable or, hey man, this thing's got speed. They're good guinea pigs per se.
Well, because I know I talked to you at A1 and we were talking about Prado, and he was telling me that his VO2 max was like in the 70s, and I was like, you're like, Johnny, of course it is. He's a damn good cyclist. So do you test VO2 max out the Baker's factory?
No. I mean, and my reasoning is I feel, this is my personal opinion, is that I don't feel VO2 max is needed in the sport. So when you test for it, now, if they were going to be a cyclist or a runner and a swimmer, I'd say, man, you have to get that tested because that's showing your capabilities, what you have in the tank that can be developed. For motorcycle, you don't need a high VO2 because that's awesome, but you got to need a lot of other pieces of bike control, the ability and technique and talent for the motorcycle has to come into play. That's the major part where the training is going to benefit that. So I'm more into the lactate blood testing because that to me is very individual for each guy and shows me a lot in their fitness, where VO2 is just going to show me their capabilities. That's the simplest way I can put it.
Coach, you were shaking your head a little bit. Not that you were saying.
I couldn't agree with him more. Especially in California, these portable VO2 max became the thing back in the early 20s. And it's just crazy. It's just a number. Like you say, it's an indicator. It's not a real time lactate wattage, watts per kilogram. If you're using bike for training. I couldn't agree with him more, not because I'm speaking with him, but it's exactly right. It's like with heart rate training, and people are like, oh, well, you know, heat and humidity influences heart rate. Yeah. But heat and humidity also influences your energy level as well. So it's all relative. And I just think a lot of things get taken out of context, spun, maybe even like the portable VO2 Max was a big revenue generator for so-called trainers at the track. They're like, oh, I can come to the track and test your VO2. And I'm like, it's completely irrelevant. Alden, if you don't mind, if we could go back to your bike for just a moment, are you cool with that?
Yes.
Are you selling kind of like on the Canyon? You know, they revolutionized the bike by selling directly to consumer. Is that your model as well, or do you have bricks and mortar?
No, so we want online, and honestly, our biggest sales thing is word of mouth. You know, once the bike gets out there, and a buddy and I always feel that's the best sale you can have is when someone says, "Man, you look at my new cool bike, I love it," and tells a buddy, and it works that way. Big, and the reason with and look, it's impressive. Shops are very impressive, but I feel like they're flooded with bikes. We know that post-COVID, every shop has too much product, so. That's another thing is not that we were wanting to. We thought if there's a couple of boutique shops that really want us, then we'll, you know, look into that for sure. But not just to throw another name in the bag when we know between Specialized and Trek and Giant, they pretty much own, I think, almost all the shops. And like I said, I think there's too much product out there that these other massive companies are having to deal with. So yeah, we're not just going to add another one in there for sure. That's not our goal. Yeah.
And when we look at the gravel bike, you look at your traditional road geometry, very, you know, seat post is way behind. If you look at the tri bike, now we've got the bottom bracket, you know, hips are in front of the bottom bracket. How is a gravel bike set up? Where's that geometry? Does it fall right in the middle of those two?
Kind of in the middle, yes. And it you got to have a little bit more of a relaxed mode. So you definitely, when we looked at the gravel bikes, you got to also understand sort of a regular mountain bike for the comfort. You know, you can't be too far forward. You got to be more relaxed and then just in a better position upward. You know, so it's maybe not the most aerodynamic position, but it's a more comfortable position, and that's what we push for. And then the engineers, obviously with that understanding, they go to work on, okay, this is what we can do without also giving up, you know, strengths that are needed in specific areas, because the bikes still have to be tested and put through hammering to make sure that they're going to stand the test of time. So and carbon is the way to go. I mean, to me, that is it. Purely because obviously the way it does flex, and then also the way it has the strength, you know, so, and longevity, you know.
What are you guys doing in crate arm lengths? Are you in the 62.5? Are you all the way up to 70 point? Are you 72.5 all the way 180? How big of a leverage arm are we using?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's become sort of the big thing lately.
Taddy? I thought Taddy was using like a 162 or something is what he was using for the tour. Maybe not.
I don't know. I mean, I find that hard to believe that, but I'd say I like, you know, the 170 range, right? You know, like the low, like 170, you know, to the 175s. I think that's way out there. But that to me, we also leave up to Shimano and SRAM. And then when a person, they got options when they go on those, and then if they want, what's it? I think to me 162 now. Is it? I
mean, that's real low. Do you have to keep your cadence like above 100 when you have that crank arm?
That's what it's all about. It's all about leverage and RPMs. And Alden, I'm still old school. You know, I'm still looking at them running a 52, 48 on the front, double chain ring. Now they're running singles at 55, 56, 58.
Yeah, going uphill.
And I'm like, how do you get the crank arm length to get the cadence? You can only move your bum forwards and backwards on the seat so much to get the angle. So you've got to climb. You're at the back of the seat trying to get leverage. Then they dive bomb downhill. And I'm like, you can't get far enough forward to get the RPMs up, but then you're losing the leverage. And BMX is doing the same thing, you know, going to these very, very small cog sets. And I'm like, and it's almost, I've kind of teased Johnny about this. It's like you used to be a 72.5 to a 75, and you were considered a leverage Jan Ulrich style, or you're running 170s Lance style at 110, 120 RPMs. But they both won the tour. And then you look at running. They've gone from the Nike Air Max in 86 to, oh, you run barefooted. It's the only way to run, to now we're back to hookah shoes that have 3.5 inches. It's like, how can the science that 3 years ago they said you don't want to run in anything that's going to create instability in the ankle, and now that's the gospel. And it's just like, how can it at one time be scientifically validated and now it's completely invalidated? And that's where I'm at with crank arms. It's like 62.5 on a crank arm. I mean, that's a hamster wheel.
And Rob, you're exactly right. I still can't fathom it. Yeah, I'm old school. But then these trends come and go, is what you just said. I think it also depends on who's the guy. I mean, Pogacar is the guy we all look at now on road bikes. So whatever he is doing or whatever puts out, that's pretty much what we're all going to look at.
It's almost like Tomac with the scoop tire or starting blocks.
I mean, back in the day, Ricky's bars, I mean, hey, that was an everybody wanted, so to me, it does come down to an individual, because every individual is different with the length of their legs to their torso. I was shocked when Prado was out here and he didn't have a bicycle, and I had to lend him that was hard to do. I had to give him my personal road bike. I was like, oh my, I wouldn't lend that to my wife, So anyway, but but because he fitted that, and I'm a 52, I look at him, I'm like, how was that possible? But it's also his legs are not that, so he actually fits fine on it. But I was like, there's no way you need to use my son's bike. It's a bigger, but the point I'm making, it goes to personal measurements of each individual, and you've got to tailor that for you. I do believe you need to look into a few things at what you're trying to do with the bicycle to get a decent understanding. But the options are massive. I mean, even with handlebars and stems, so it can get
like an
complicated.
ice cream shop. You walk away and you're like, did I pick the right one? Because of how
it's
and Johnny, different. This is why it's so important, because like, unfortunately with mainstream media, they'll take a picture of Taddy's bike, and that might be the bike he's using to climb Alpe d'Huez. It'd be a completely different bike than he's doing in an individual time trial. And it's completely different if he's doing a 200-mile stage race. They're not running the same bike every day. I mean, they're literally changing a lot. Cranks, crank arms, cog set, gear ratios. And that's where I get a little bit fed up with people that are like, it's like, I'm not going to call any names out, but it's like so-called riding coaches out there that because Jet stands more, now everybody should stand in the corner and you never sit down. And I'm like, for Pete's sakes alive, come on. Are we that gullible?
Yeah.
No, it fills up camps, I guess.
Yeah, no, Coach will be right about that. And again, they always look at the guy that happens to be doing well, and that'll set the trend, no matter what. But there it goes. It's got to be linked to each individual. And you're right, again, with Pogacar, they'll look at the route he's going to do that day and tailor the bike for that. That's where they at. Where good luck, I can't do that.
Exactly.
So it's that whole deal.
Well, hey, Alden, where does the name come from of your bike company?
Alcave comes, so my first is AL and then DON, and Alfredo is AL. So we started off with the AL, and then a lot of names were thrown around. I mean, you don't want a long name that no one could try or you can't fit on a bicycle.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to be like short, because that seems like you've shortcutted something. We sat around forever, and it was actually one of Anna's, I think it was Anna's dad that came out with Alcave. And
nice.
I remember he said, hey, what about Alcave? And I was like, what is Alcave? It sounds like a nectar, like a sweet, you know what I mean? But it's actually, it is a unique name. And then the other big thing is, has that name been taken? Because you've got to trademark that name and make sure. So a lot of little pieces of that puzzle to come up with the clean Alcave name. And we all had to be like, yeah, man, kind of like that. That's going somewhere.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Well, small segue about that. Alden, some riders really thrive in your program, while others have kind of moved on. What personality traits work best at the Baker's factory?
Ooh, Johnny, that's a good question. I'd say, look, for the last 10 years, with being involved with KTM Husqvarna, and then the link even with lately, and then it disappeared with Gas. Remember, I don't get to pick the riders. It's the riders they sign that then come to me, which is awesome. I mean, I love the group. They're an amazing team and group in that. But there is a part that sometimes I don't have a choice on some of that are going to be sent to me. And you've got to make that fit in and work with the group that you have. So that is a challenge. It's doable, but as we all know, some traits that riders have or mentalities are not easy to get them to gel with or conform to structure. And I'm a very structured guy. I believe in a lot of planning, a lot of structure, and the biggest part is discipline. And I get it that doesn't always work for everybody with their upbringing and how they've developed. So it is tough. And I've always said my program, and that is probably not for everyone, but we will do our best to get the best out of whoever. Some guys, I mean, only one guy can win, but we have multiple guys that could win. And then there's only probably a few that can put that together over 17 rounds. So the dynamics are difficult. And we know in the sport with injuries, it's there's a lot. But my goal with guys that may not gel as well is at least, hey, can we at least get you better? And if they don't, and they think, then they move on, or teams buy. I mean, we every couple years we see the shift where people go, and that's part of it. It's part of the sport which we all love and enjoy.
Well, which rider pushed you the hardest with your program?
I'd say Villopoto. I mean, remember now, I love that guy. He's like a son to me now. I mean, we were so in, and I was with him, I mean, all the time. I mean, I've lived with him for a while. I traveled every weekend with him. But he was an amazing talent, but he hated the work to do it, but he knew that he needed to do it. So there wasn't any discounting that he didn't trust the system or the program, or not willing to put in the work and suffer. But he didn't enjoy that. And I think his way, once I learned how he would push my buttons, man. He would get me ready that he almost wanted to offload his load kind of on me in a way. And so we loved each other. I mean, we spent all our time together, but boy, we were like bickering brothers. It was on a daily basis, and I had to push him, because that's the only way he actually would perform. And it honestly came back from his upbringing. His dad pushed him a lot and expected a lot. And I first tried, with sort of, just the normal, like, okay, hey, this is the structure, this is the plan, you do this, we tick the boxes, and all is good. But that doesn't work for everybody. So I'd say he was the toughest one to get going, but I was the most satisfied with what he did. That to me was the other piece that why I love that guy so much, and I'm still good friends with him, and
so he just had to dig deeper than most people, because usually when people don't like something, they quit.
Yes.
So it takes a special individual to be like, fuck, and then just keep doing it.
Yeah. And the stack was against him. That injury to his ankle, it was borderline. He's going to take his insurance money and he's done, or we're going to try and get back into this. And I got to give a lot of respect to that, because once he committed, he said, all right. And we did get the ankle looked at. That, what, it's for motorcycles, it'll be okay. But yeah, not really running, or, like, we had to tailor things for him. But that was no joke, and his desire and will is so impressive. So yeah, that's
Hey,
yeah.
Alden, in regards to your format, your design, uh, rest in peace, Coy Gibbs. You know, his
Mm,
vision was to have those boys living up there in the Carolinas, and
mm,
I don't want to call it a football mentality because that's obviously where his dad was from, but
mm,
that all in one, we're going to train together, eat together, we're going to live together, be in close proximity. We have one facility. Obviously, you know, James was the first big rider to go there, and there's
mm,
no way that he's going to leave Haines City, as you know.
mm,
And so what is it that you think, is it because of the support and backing that you got from KTM that allowed you to be able to adhere to, hey guys, this is the facility, this is where we train at, you can find some housing around it? Why do you think that you were able to get that and to this day still making it a successful model when Joe Gibbs, with more money than common sense, couldn't make
mm.
that model work in the Carolinas?
I mean, there's two sides to that. I think firstly, you've got to prove that it can work,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone watches, and the big stepping stone for me was when Villo, now this is before I even had a facility. I was still,
Mm-hmm.
Villo owned the facility. I was his trainer at his facility. Um, but he was on the other side looking at, I might do one more year and I'm done. I've done more than what I've wanted to do. It's been awesome, but I've got a contract for another year, and gosh, yeah, I need to honor that, which he would do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came up with the idea, and it was linked to. I always had this thought in my mind, because that if you put two good guys together, they'll push each other. But as long as the mentality understands that, because
Mm-hmm.
there is give and take. And we had been in a phase where everyone was hidden. When I was with Ricky, you didn't let anyone know what you were doing. You hid.
Right.
Chad Reed was doing his thing. James Stewart was doing his thing. Well, I think Wyndham had his own place. That was the era. And there was no way you could have brought that mentality together. Just was not possible at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to see the shift with Villo, and I was like, I need a young guy to just throw in there, to just give him, because I knew that would push him, because
Yeah,
I was running out of steam on how to push him.
sure.
And I thought, okay, this is a long shot, but at the time, Ken Roxon was going to be moving up to the big class, and I met with Kenny, and because Kenny actually approached me and said, "Listen, I'm moving up. I like what you've done. I want to get in. I want to, which I gave him a lot of props for that, because he's a talented guy. It's not like he wasn't doing anything, yet he wanted some guidance and help. And so I thought, gosh, I got to try and sell this to Villa, where, hey, listen, come and ride with him. And I thought this could be, I'm on a prayer, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, he was open to it. He said, yeah, let's do it. And I said, hey, now remember, this guy is young. He's got talent. He is going to be dynamic. But I do believe there's still going to be a learning curve, because that's part of it. So you're going to have to come in that, let this guy push me, and then let the racing do the racing. Whatever happens there, we need to have that understood, that is on the day. What you do with it, may the best man win. And once we had those set in place, it worked out really, really well. But actually, Villa got injured, I think, at the
Mm-hmm.
Monster Cup, so he was behind. He would be at the track watching Kenny just burning laps, looking like a machine. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh, this is even worse now, then, because he's coming in late. And then Anaheim won. Kenny won the first, if I'm not mistaken, with basically his debut, and he
Mm-hmm.
won. And I think Villa might have been like fourth or something. And I thought, now let the games begin, because I'm probably going to get chewed out, especially from the group around him, not
Sure.
necessarily him. I might be done. You better get rid of Kenny. This is wrong. But he was amazing. Like, you know what? And we carried on. Kenny won again in Atlanta. And then I think we went to St. Louis. And the worst thing, they both hit each other at the end of the start, both on the floor. And I thought, this is even better. Like, what more could go wrong than this? And they got up, got going, and Villo chased up to, and I think finished fourth. Kenny ended up crashing again and made a big deficit in what he had. And even after that, Kenny came around, but at the end of that season, Villo did win. Dungey was second, and third overall was Kenny. But once we got that sort of set in place, that was the start of, hey, I think we can put good guys together. And Ian Harrison and Roger da Costa, and obviously Pitt in Europe, they were then like, hey, let's put all our good guys together. Let's orchestrate this along those same terms. They were the one that said to me, listen, let's aim for that. I already had started a facility, and because Villo was selling and everything else, that's a whole different story. But I had guys and I needed a place to run. It's not like I went out and said, I need to get my own facility. If I knew what I knew today, there's no way in hell. So, but I had to, I was pushed, go and get a loan, do whatever, buy some land, working out of containers, make it happen. And that's how it developed to what we have today.
How difficult was it? And we'll bring up the dads. Unfortunately, it's the volatile part of the conversation in the sport. You have Kenny comes over with his dad. His dad's pretty much been his trainer, strength and conditioning coach, mentor, the whole 9 yards.
What's up,
and
man?
then, like you said, on the other side of the equation, you've got Kenny with his dad being very, very tight. And then you have Dan with Villopoto. And I don't know at that point if Dan and Villo were still, I don't know if they were amicable at that stage. How do you deal with the dad side of that when they look at you as you're taking over their role? And like you said, I can't even imagine the sleepless nights that you must have had when you're, all right, you bring in Kenny. Kenny now surpasses Villo at the races. And then, like you said, the next weekend they're on the ground together. Then one gets up, boom, 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 boom.
Hey, Alden, I don't mean to interrupt you guys. Real quick. I've got a fan question here. Tested positive. He wants to ask you a question, Alden.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm wondering, what percentage do you dedicate to twisting, stretching, and flexibility and foam rolling? Do you do it at the end of a workout?
So good questions to do with flexibility.
Thanks, tested positive. And Coach, I didn't mean to interrupt you as well. Hey, I appreciate you having this little segment in here, having one of the fans interact and ask a question. So, Alden, do you mind answering that for tested positive?
What? No, yeah. So I missed the first part. Maybe I got the flexibility one.
He was saying, how much do you dedicate doing yoga and flexibility? Do you do it at the beginning of the workout, at the end of the workout?
Beginning of the workout. It should be done first thing in the morning. I mean, I'm a big believer that you got to prepare the body. And when you've been sleeping, you're all stiff. You need to now do your stretching. I've got a yoga routine that I have my guys, and I pray they stick to it. But it's first thing in the morning, and then they start their cardio, and then it goes to the riding. Now, I'm all good with doing stretching after riding and all of that, but I feel that the most and the best way is to make sure you're doing it first thing, if that answers that.
Perfect. And maybe at some point I need to make it to where I do that segment, not just randomly. So, I'm just making things awkward. So sorry, Coach, I cut you off on what
No. Remember, man, we just appreciate you putting the show together. I was just asking Alden in regards to, Villopoto's dad, Dan, was very big in his life. We've seen the documentaries on that.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Dan, as well. The idea that Ken Roczen, a very, very public, his dad's he's a big figure. I still have some questions, and Alden, we can maybe talk about it off the air. Like the mechanic that came over with Kenny when he was at Honda, very good friend of his, with his whole amateur career. Where did he go? Why was he never invited back? Like I said, we can talk about that off the air, but how did you handle the moto dads? Because we've all had our experiences with those difficult ones. They've pretty much raised these kids, and now you're coming in telling them this is the way it's going to be done.
Look, it is tough, and I think it comes back to there needs to be a bit of a respect that and an understanding, and I try and tell all the dads, hey, I am not here to replace you. Without the dad, they would have never be in a position to get a factory ride or to be as good as they are to then even get my help. So I always try and make that clear that I'm here to support, not take a place, because I know as a parent, you can never do that. And I know there were issues when I was with Villo, their relationship was very strained. Thank God it did come around.
Right.
And it came around at the right time, and that was a huge blessing. It was good to see. But it is tough for the parents when they've put everything in, they've sacrificed so much, and they see their position get sort of downgraded in a way. I go back to it's how you look at it. I try and talk to them when they do ask, or we have a situation or an opportunity to talk about it, is that, hey, you need to be proud of where you've got them, and it is I would hope an opportunity where you are not so heavily invested. You can take a step back and look at what you produced. It's like looking at a mold and a product. I mean, it's your son, so it's not a product, but all that you've done now, look what has come out of it. Is he's got an opportunity, he's a factory rider, he has all the support. Wow, what a proud moment. I know if my son did that, I'd be like, man, we made it. You can go and sit in the stands and chug a beer and look at your boy do and know he's got the group. But there is trust on both sides, and I think sometimes with the parents, they don't quite trust. For some reason, they get to it and they still have to micromanage. But when I see that, it puts a strain on the kid, the rider, and on the parent, and it starts a dynamic. Dungey had issues until that got set, and I found when I took on Dungey, that was set in place, and what a pleasure. Dad was dad. Dad was respected. It was phenomenal. The relationship flourished. But some relationships between the kids, and the parents, I think that you never know what's really going to go on there. But overall, I've never seen in 26 years a relationship flourish when the dad or whoever it is will not actually let go a little bit and trust the plan, trust the team and what they're doing. So it is a dynamic that'll probably carry on for the rest of time. We still see, I look back and I think, man, I think I've seen the worst of the worst, and then no ways that there's another step. So it is challenging and it's difficult. It's difficult for the team. It's difficult for the rider. But it's a big part of it, Rob. I mean, and when just going back quickly to Kenny, when his dad came back into the scene, I got to respect. Kenny came to me and we were talking, and I said, look, that's your dad. He has first preference way over me. So you need to decide. And I will not be offended, because there's no way, if I was in that situation, my dad's going to be the guy. It's up to the dad to decide, I think I trust the system, son. I'm okay with it, and you need to do that. Because otherwise, there's always going to be that imbalance, So, yeah, when Kenny moved on and went to Suzuki, obviously the dad was all about Suzuki from back in the day. And I mean, Kenny's such a talent that, I mean, I'm blown away on any bike. What he can do is so impressive, and still doing it today. So, yeah, it's good.
I just have mad respect for you, because listening to you talk, you're mentioning two very big names in our sport, Ian Harrison and Roger. Of course, Carlos is now big in that program as well. And then on the other side, you've got the rider and his dad, and your expectations are set from KTM corporate, expectations are set from dad and rider. You're stuck in the middle. And I always tease, our sport is personified by Billy Joel's song, Sadness or Euphoria. Because in 1 minute, everybody's happy as all get out. And then 3 minutes later, you went from hero to zero, and somehow it's always your fault, directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
When the two guys, when Villo and Kenny came together. Somehow that's your fault too, you know? And it's just like,
it's
I don't know how you get up every morning and deal with it.
Well, I mean, you know, and look, you once again, it's the job. I'm passionate about what I do, and I believe, and Rob, you know that, John, you know, every job has its ups and downs, but you've got to be still, hey man, that's part of it, and we'll get through it, and another good day is coming. A quick story. I don't want to hold you guys up. One Daytona, the year, I can't even remember the year, but Villo won Daytona, and Baggett, who I was training on the 250 at the time, won Daytona. I mean, we couldn't have got a better, you know, both wins. I mean, we're high-fiving, the team's loving this. This is Mitch Payton's happy. I've got the other group with Cowie. I mean, we're on the top of the world. The next weekend was Jacksonville, and both of them never made the main in 1 week. And I remember that weekend, I never slept because I was also trying to put out fires all through we are stuck at the hotel. The war was going on, but that was literally 7 days later. So you take it while you can, you enjoy it while you can, and you respect that. Hey man, this is a volatile deal. Nothing's guaranteed, and you keep pushing forward. Yeah.
Hey, Alden, does that mean, I'm joking here, so I think most of Johnny's fans understand this. Kind of reminds me a lot of Chase Sexton. Wins next week, he's taking everything off the bike and nothing's working, you know?
Yeah. I mean, gosh,
in 1 week.
In 1 week, it's, look, that one I can't hardly. And even when I had Chase at the facility, remember, he was using the facility, he was doing his own program, you know, and I was there to help if and when it needed. And that was a tough dynamic for me, because there's no doubt that anyone can't say how talented that kid is. But I think the areas where I feel like I could have helped, you can only help if people say, hey, I would like your help.
Exactly.
And look, I've the utmost, you know, respect for him and his dad. It's not that they aren't all in. They are trying their thing, you know what I mean? But I do believe at some point you've got to start addressing or thinking in other areas of, okay, is there something that's missing, or, you know, what is going on? Because as we all know, what a talented guy, what a good dude, you know, and the sport needs him, you know, and it raises the bar. And but from the sidelines, it's interesting to watch those dynamics. Yeah.
What's scary to me is the consistency of Dan and Villo, Roczen and his dad, Chase and his father. There just seems to be a consistency all the way through. And I've aired my frustration with Johnny on this show before. You remember those couple seasons when Tomac was at Kawasaki, he had the fastest qualifier, led the most laps, and couldn't seal the deal. He couldn't get the #1 plate. That was the year his pants broke and just had silly things going on. And then you had the media pundits that went so far as to say he needs to separate from his dad and needs to start a new program. And it kind of ties in with what you're saying right here. I just cannot even begin to understand that mindset, that as an industry, and then some talking pundits that think that that's even a realistic idea. Like you said, you're a father now, so you understand that bond can't be replaced. I understand that dad's got to give you the blessings to say, hey, look, I do trust this. Let's go. We're all in. But when you look at this kind of the black cloud that keeps following around, and what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I'm just like, I don't know how somebody can have the audacity to say he's got all these wins and he needs to leave his father and start a new program. And of course, now here we look 5 years later, and you look at the story, never wavered from his routine. He knows the importance of an early season base. He understands the value of an off season. With the exception of designations, he's going bow hunting. He's not going to go do 5 more European races. He understands the value of off season. And I've always said, I mean, yes, of course, I don't know if you were aware of this, Aldon, but I used to race against John in BMX back in the 86.
Okay.
Yeah, small little world, right? So John was #1 for Tomac, and I was number 15 riding for KHS, but that's how far back we go. And I just think it's interesting when you look at yes, John and Kathy have an extensive cycling background and they're legends in
Yes.
their own time. But why it still blows my mind when you look at the success that you've had. And that's why I was curious to get your opinion on the JGR model that was really ahead of its time, that wasn't really well received. And then it got exacerbated with James, because James was going to put his foot down, which is so hard when he's the biggest dog in the sport at the time. He gets what he wants. And then you look at Tomac doing what he's done. And yet, if you look at Tomac, right, still doing kind of the RC thing that you talked about, the Villopoto thing, the would be Chad, James, and RC at the time. Nobody knew what the other ones were doing. Yeah, maybe you guys let Townley come in for a little bit here and there, and maybe Chad would let, I'm drawing a mental Blake, the guy that's at the compound farm.
The other Australian guy, Michael
Burner. Thank you. Thank you. I brain fart there. Yes, Chad would let Burner come in, and yes, Ricky would let maybe Townley would come in here and there, or maybe James would let Chisholm, because they were at San Manuel eventually. Chisholm would come in, and then even Dunge, when he was on the 250, James let him ride there for a while.
Correct.
And I love what you were doing, and I think it's cool that KTM has finally understood what you're not finally, but obviously you've had a good decade with those guys, really.
Yeah.
And I love that they invest in your program at all different levels, with riders, with finances, and all that goes into it. But it's just so interesting when you step out and you look at the most successful models. And I say this very respectfully to the industry, because I love the sport, but I sometimes get concerned that the sport can't get out of its own way, because you've had success. The model has been emulated. Ricky, James, Chad, you look at what Tomac is doing in current time, right? It's not, we could talk about Chad and Ricky and James as the last generation. Well, you've got Alden in the existing, you've got Tomac in the existing, and it's just like now Stars finally getting the momentum and the recognition that the model works. And yet people are still trying to reinvent the wheel. That's what I cannot fathom. I cannot fathom it.
No, it is strange, Rob. And you, everything you've said is honestly, it's right on point. And man, kudos to you, because you see it. And you're right with Tomac. And what's crazy with him, obviously the amount of years we fought against him, and you're like, gosh, he's such a hard guy to be. And also, like, going back to John, I knew John from some of the mountain bike stuff, but he was on his way out when I was still kind of coming in. But I looked up to John, like, dude, just like he's the guy. But one thing I've noticed over the years is he's there as a support, as a dad to Eli. He obviously has a massive interest in all of it, because he's also, his background with two wheels and everything else is totally, it makes sense. But I've never heard or seen, and maybe, but that he's ever overstepped the mark. He's been very supportive, but he also gives the trust to, like, the team, or to what Eli is doing, or all those areas. And I think that's what makes a dad and son bond super good. He's not in his way. He's there to help and be a father for him. And for me, I've never really knew much about Eli. Eli's always been on the opposite team, and he's only been a few times out to the facility to do some testing. But what I am so impressed, and now, not that I always respected Eli because of what he did. I mean, it was incredible. But now I'm like, I'm a big fan, because I see the interaction with him and the team. And it is incredible, and it comes down to accountability. He is one of the most accountable guys that you could want to have on your deal. And I think that's a big separator, where we've got to watch out this up there. And I'm hoping that the new generation can actually learn that having accountability is critical in your results. You cannot, as much as you can give opinions and what your needs are, it can't be blaming. Because as soon as you're pointing the finger the wrong way, you're not actually pushing yourself the right way. And that's the biggest thing I've seen with Eli. I mean, I've put it out a few times now, where he didn't get such a good start, and Christian Craig crashed in front of him, and he went down pretty hard. But for him to come back to the team and say, I'm sorry, I should have never been in that place. That wasn't his fault. You know, he didn't blame Christian Craig or, hey, man, a guy crashed, which even I thought you could.
Sure.
But here's a guy that says, nah, that was on me. I was in the wrong place. So I need to be better. I mean, that blows where now the team around you rally, they're like, look at the guys, like, wow, with accountability. Even when I heard about that, I was like, dude, I need to be more accountable for what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you know what I mean? So the dynamic is very, very impressive. Yeah.
And it's not a matter of what happens to you, it's how you react to it.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And
what you can learn from it. You know, there's going to be mistakes, but it's what did we learn from that to be better the next time? You know?
Mm-hmm. And what's staggering is you think about all the riders that you've had over the last 26 years, as you mentioned earlier, and for 13 of those, it's been against Eli.
Yeah.
It's crazy at that highest level.
Yes. It's, that's why but I'm blown away, and it's so cool to see him, you know, on our team and doing really, really well. And man, I hope he can keep it going. But his approach and mentality and the way he operates, I now understand how he's doing that.
quick question. Because you've changed fitness in motorcycle racing so much, do you think that riders today on fitness alone could beat the Carmichael era?
Yes, it's changed a lot. And Rob can mention, I mean, you know, there's a lot more accountability and training and fitness, a lot more trainers, which is awesome. The sport needs it. I think for many, many years, because when I first analyzed it, I was like, man, these guys just do one thing, but if they actually added in a few other, we kind of caught quite a few napping. And guys that were talented, then that's one thing. And Rob can probably talk about this too, that talent is amazing. It'll get you a certain place, but if you actually want the full package and longevity, you need more than talent. You need the work ethic. You need all the other pieces to be a consistent guy. But it is good to see the sports elevated. I mean, the bikes have elevated. The areas where the guys ride at, the compounds. I mean, geez, I see what I have to do to keep the standard so high. Everything has improved, and it's great for the sport. I mean, the sport's come a long way, and I think it can even get better. But it is a professional sport. A lot is required, and I think that at least a lot is now being put more also with what the athlete needs to do to prepare. Beforehand, I think the teams would go to the weekend and the guy would rock up and they'd be one like, okay, yeah, we are. Now it's the teams understand what's going on during the week. There's a lot more connectivity to it all, which I feel helps a lot, especially with how many more races they have to do and how intense the racing and the seasons are, and the amount of good riders.
So you cannot win a Supercross championship in 2026 without having elite fitness at this point.
I don't feel like, no, yeah, there's no way that you're only as weak as your weakest link. I mean, that's a known saying, but I think if you aren't fit and it'll get you somewhere, you know.
Okay. And
you know, Alden, what I find is interesting, excuse me, Johnny, just
go for it.
it's like when you show up for a Wednesday night group ride and you look at the guys on the front and they're Cat 1 riders and you're like, and that dude wouldn't even make the cut for the Tour de France. That to me is kind of the litmus test. You're like, that dude up there is just killing it. And you're like, he wouldn't even make the cut. It's just so hard to fathom when you're sitting there in the stands watching it or on TV, just how fast they really are. So there's just no way you could get away with not being fit at this level anymore, in my opinion.
Correct.
Well, Alden, what's the biggest mistake that amateur riders make trying to train like the pros?
Oh, that's a good question, Johnny. I mean, you know, we've only lately branched into the whole amateur thing and the development, and I'd say what comes to mind is they firstly, they try and rush things. I feel like they're so intent on trying to go pro instead of, hey, wherever I'm at, let me become something in that first, if it's B group, A, whatever those stages are in races. I think they start to get, I mean, there's a lot of amateur races, but I feel that they don't plan well enough to pick and choose and prepare, kind of narrow it down. That's what I'm trying to say. They look at the pros, they look at all the racing that the pros do, they try and follow what the pros are doing, but they're not actually doing the same thing. The pros have to do their programs because of how much they're doing, where the amateurs, it's different. And I still feel like you need to focus on what your group or your pond is doing to be the best in that pond to get into the next bigger pond and develop, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. People they see, because of social media nowadays, you might see one or two things and you try to emulate it, and it's the farthest thing from the truth. You're kind of seeing the end result rather than everything that brought up to it. And Alden, I know I was only going to keep you an hour, and I could probably keep you for 2-3 more. And I'd love to have you back on the podcast at some time to talk about future things, because you give a lot of really good information that my fans, just the community of motocross and supercross, they just eat this stuff up because they want to be better themselves. And experience is best when it's not your own. It's best to hear from somebody that has gone through shit and has come out the other side and has learned from it, rather than you having to try to go through everything else. It's better just to hear it from the source. So I commend you for coming on, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm digressing. Is there anything you want to say? Anything coming up? Anything?
No. From my end, I mean, everything's cruising along. I mean, we're, getting into the season, and, it's, I kind of joke in a way that, I've got the older group with me at the moment, the most funnest group you'll ever be around. But I tease them. I call them like they're the retirement community, that I have with me. But they're not. They still are really good, really capable, a lot of experience, and a joy to have. So, as a trainer right now, I'm loving it, but I'm still haven't seen the results come through for them on the weekend. And we've been plagued with a few injuries, which happens in the sport. You can't question too much, like if, when, how, what, when, like with RJ, huge potential, got a lot of grit, and now he's, the handlebar falls right on the hot spot and breaks a bone. But I am looking forward to that. I will feel my boy AP and Malcolm totally capable. Even in the off season when Eli was out here, Malcolm wouldn't let, and I know Eli was trying. It was fun watching, because Eli was all in, like, dude, we're gonna do a moto and we're gonna give it everything. And it was what a pleasure to watch. I mean, AP was kind of there, but those two and Prado was kind of there. But to see the group pushing each other and all out, and obviously to see like Eli's really taken and run with it. I feel like my guys have got something,
So Malcolm was super close to Eli while you guys were in your hell and everything.
But then in a bad position at the start of A1, gets landed on.
But that only says a lot about what you've done, because a normal person would completely break and die. But because of how fit he was, is probably one of the reasons why he didn't get as injured.
It's true. I mean, but he's not one of the guys that just loves all the other parts of training, but he does understand the purpose of it, So, and he's a tough guy, man. I mean, geez, what a solid dude. But it is good to see, and I think we should be around those, for those issues kind of getting in the past, and I'm looking forward to them, because they do still amazing things during the week. We just haven't seen the translation on the weekend. But I'm excited that that has to come, So, but overall, I mean, I'm happy. The group's phenomenal. The guys I have around me, the track guys that I have that help me at the Baker's facility, the support from Raj, Ian, but all the guys, we have an amazing group, great people, great product. So yeah, we're in a good spot, man. We just got to keep it going,
Compound interest. Well, thank you, Alden, for coming on, and we'll probably pick your brain in a few months, and you'll be able to talk more about the tri-hybrid bike that comes out too.
Yes, no, thanks, man.
We're looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'll be checking the Alcave bikes.com, and it's going to be coming soon.
Heck yeah. Well, thanks everybody. As always, if you like this content, please subscribe. The algorithm loves it. Till next time, keep it WFO.
Thanks, Rob.